Kind of already tested this mic earlier, but okay, yeah, because doesn't I don't matter. Ah, Cruel Summer. I love this song. The song? What? You saying? Oh, gotcha. They did a remake of this. It's actually it was for Cobra Kai. Do you know what I'm talking about? That one's good. I mean, you can't go wrong with the original, but they did a pretty good job with that one too.
Two, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Because remember I switched. Remember I told you I switched because two was
Oh, two was being weird.
that's why. Yep, we're good. So no two. It's just 1 and 3.
Hello, guys. It's Maggie Vincent. You're listening to The Real Melody. I know I haven't been on here in a little bit. I wasn't here last week. We didn't have class, so I couldn't be on the radio. I've missed it. I've missed you guys. Today is a little different. I know I usually, pick a movie and I talk about the movie and the soundtrack behind that movie. And don't worry, I'll talk about some movies today. Don't you fret. But I have a really special guest here today, Chad Clifford. Say hello.
Hello, everyone.
He is
Hi.
the lead singer of the Craw Puppies. It's a band that I kind of grew up with, so I'm really excited he's here.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. This is an awesome place. This is wonderful.
This is my favorite room in this whole building,
Yeah,
so
that's very cool.
I love to show it off to people. The first thing I want to talk about is basically the beginning.
Okay.
I just want to know how you got into music.
Well, when I was in high school, I was in a band called Digital Hair, and we played 80s music,
Okay.
And I pretty much decided when I was about 5 years old that I was going to be a musician. I pretty much decided that that's just kind of what I wanted to do with my life. So I just kind of didn't take no for an answer. And a lot of people will tell you, well, that's cute and everything, but it's I don't know how you're going to do it. And I found a way to do it. I just was kind of bullheaded,
I
So,
like it. I like
yeah,
it.
it's so I've been doing it for so long now that I don't want to say I take it for granted, but it's just kind of in my DNA, I think.
That's awesome. I like the way it's in your DNA.
Well, and whether I was good at it or not, I was going to do it. So it's a good thing that I was kind of good at it, because people come around, because otherwise I'd still be doing it. It's a weird thing, but I'm sure a lot of people have that drive for something.
Yeah.
And I saw something the other day. It was just like some meme online, and it said, "Boy, don't you wish you could have followed your childhood dream? What would you have done if you followed your childhood dream?" And a lot of people would chime in and said, "I'd have been an astronaut. Mine would have been a musician." So I just put a big check mark,
Put a check mark.
Yeah,
I love
and
it.
I'm very, very lucky.
So I grew up. I think I was in second grade when I started. I haven't really played much in a while, but I started playing guitar.
Okay.
I took music lessons for quite a few years. What was your beginner instrument? Did you have one?
I started on guitar. My grandma got me a guitar for Christmas, and it was under the Christmas tree. And
Mine was too.
I remember looking at this box and thinking, "What the heck is this?" Because it's kind of a weird shape. I thought it was like a snowshoe or something.
Oh my gosh,
or
a snowshoe.
or a tennis racket or something. I didn't know what it was, but it was a guitar, and I still have it. and I used to just do little concerts for my grandma where I would
Aw.
set up and play, and I didn't know what I was doing. But then my dad taught me some chords, and then I'm a huge Beatles fan, so they got me a Beatles book, and I would play all those Beatles songs until I'd get to a chord that I couldn't play. But I pretty much, my dad taught me, and then I taught myself for the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, I was always, I played some drums, but I wanted to be a singer, and playing drums and singing they didn't really quite work as well as playing guitar and singing. So.
Yeah, that's really cool because I'm a triplet.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So
wow, that's
yeah,
cool.
my sister. Those of you who know this radio show, my sister's my producer. She grew up playing piano,
Okay.
and then I started playing guitar, and my brother plays the drums.
Okay.
So when we were little, we were like, oh, we're gonna have a band. We're gonna be so cool.
Yeah.
I like to sing. That's what I'm gonna do, and
Yeah.
that's not really what happened.
Well, I think a lot of kids are kind of are like that, so it's not uncommon. But I mean, because I've got 4 sons, and all of them are musically inclined. But it's funny because to them, they've only known me doing it, so they've never really seen that part where they've never grown out of it because they haven't seen me grow out of it.
Yeah.
I guess, and it's not maybe grow out of it, but I guess if you could still tap into that love of doing it, it's never too late to do it.
Right.
Music brings people joy at all kinds of levels. Sometimes it's something you can do, and sometimes it's just something you do just because you love doing it.
Right. That's really cool.
So get the band back together. What are you waiting
Bo,
for?
what are you thinking?
It's time to get the band back together.
Oh, she's shaking her head. My brother's the only one who really consistently still plays.
Uh-huh.
He had to sell his drum set quite a few years ago, and a buddy of ours had one or something, and he started playing it, and he goes, "Man, I really miss this."
Yeah.
So he got an electric set
Oh yeah, that's
for
great.
Christmas. That way he can have headphones in, so
For
he's
sure.
not.
And those are
waking up
nice
the
now.
house.
They didn't have those when I was growing
Yeah.
up. You had to make a lot of noise. But my dad was a drummer in the 60s. And so I grew up listening, and going to see my dad play music. So that was our thing. My dad's also a avid golfer, which I never picked up that. I picked up the drums and my love of Beatles and rock and roll and Led Zeppelin and all that stuff. All came
Ooh.
from my dad.
Led Zeppelin.
Yeah,
I like
my
them
early
too.
memories of my dad were, because my dad had me when he was very, very young. I had a very young dad and very hip dad. He's still young and hip. But I have good memories of, kind of dozing off to sleep and him coming home, from college and hearing da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da, blasted Cashmere. And you'd think that would wake you up and make you scared, but it actually calmed me very much to know, the old man's home, all's well, So my and my mother listened to a lot of music, so there was always music in my house. And they introduced me to all that stuff. I ruined all my dad's original Beatles albums.
Oh,
Because,
no.
Yeah, because I just would, because about 4 or 5 years old, I'm just playing them nonstop. So, I one of these days I got to replace them all for him.
Yeah, my mom is actually big with music. Same with my dad, which is how I came to know the Beatles. And you've said a couple times that you love.
Yeah, that's
the Beatles.
that's just what I saw them on TV, and I just said, that's what I want to do, So, and it's just inspiring. I still always hear things in not just the Beatles, but especially in the Beatles, just things that musically I could hear a song that I've heard 1,000 times, and somehow I still hear something in there that just gives you chills. That's
Yes.
my favorite thing is when your arm hairs all stand up.
Yes, that's
'cause
one
you
of
heard
my
the song,
favorite things.
And you're or you get that chill down
You
your
get
back
really
from the
excited.
music.
'Cause-
Yeah,
yes.
and so to know that that still happens for me after all this time is very amazing.
I love when that happens to me.
Yeah.
It's a song I've heard 10,000 times.
But it still gets you.
It does. So speaking of Beatles,
Mm-hmm.
our next song is one of my favorite Beatles songs. It's a very popular one, and we can talk about it after, but
Okay.
this is Hey Jude.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone. That was Hey Jude. That's one of my favorite Beatles songs of all time.
It's a wonderful song for sure.
It definitely is. So, I know that Jennings always gets annoyed when we mention him, especially in the earlier radio shows. I'm mentioning you. We were doing some research on you before you came here today, and he was trying to find a video that he swears that he's seen it. He thinks you were playing a song at Liverpool. Was it Hey Jude, or was it something else?
Send it to me when you came back. I'm almost positive.
And we can't find it, so...
Hotel lobby.
Oh,
And you were doing a sing-along. And like
yeah,
the
that
entire lobby was...
that was
Was that Germany?
no, that was actually at this Beatles festival probably, but this was actually down by Louisville in Jeffersonville, Indiana.
Okay.
But I have played in Liverpool, and I
I'm
played in
so
London.
jealous.
I did play at the Cavern Club, the famous club of the Beatles, and I'm playing there again this August, I think. So I'm making another trip.
Yeah, I was going to
Like a
ask you about that. I
pilgrimage to
saw
things.
that.
Yeah, so that's awesome.
During research, I saw you playing at the Cavern,
Yeah,
and I was like,
that
ooh!
that gives me, that was so. I had to kind of check out a little bit when I was playing because I couldn't really think about it because it was too, I had to just kind of pretend like I did like 4 songs. Then I said, okay, everyone, if you don't mind, I'm just going to take a minute and take this in. But I had to kind of go in kind of on autopilot, like I was just playing like a dive bar in Munster or somewhere. I don't
you
know.
just had to
You just
play.
had to be like, yeah. So, but then when I really got to thinking about it, it was pretty magical for sure.
That is so cool. So as I was watching that video, it looked familiar, the stage. Have you heard of the... I'm talking about a movie, guys. See, told you.
There you go.
Have you heard of the movie Across the Universe?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the beginning's like set in Liverpool, and you know how it's like he goes to try to find his dad, and he moves to America. Do you know if that's the same? Because at the very beginning, that first Beatles song was playing. I can't remember what it was, but he's in like a bar, but I can't remember if that's...
Yeah, I
it
don't
just looks
remember if
familiar.
that's the Cavern or not. I went to the Cavern after having seen that movie like years before. I have to check on that. But it is the famous Beatles bar that the Beatles played in before they were famous. So
I mean, it's a good possibility.
yeah,
Because
Yeah.
if it is, that would be so freaking cool.
Yeah.
Because
well, you know that movie called Yesterday that also came out about. Did you ever see that movie?
I've been... That's on my list.
Yeah.
I saw...
There's a lot of scenes in there that were very much London and Liverpool.
Right, because
that's in the movie. That's in the movie.
Right, the
that's in
Beatles get like erased, right?
Yeah, it's like
And
if the
he,
Beatles never existed.
Yeah,
like,
and
this
he's like...
guy knows all their songs. And
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
and that
I've
they're-
been meaning to watch that.
It's a cool movie. It's an interesting premise.
That's definitely on my bucket list. I wanted to ask you about the stage and
Okay.
like, especially like the one at the Cavern, but just like what it's like to be on stage. Because like I'm a theater kid, so I know like, but it's acting, like, but playing, like on stages.
I've done it so much that I don't want to say I take it for granted, but I don't think about it that much anymore. But there have been times when you go out and you pinch yourself and you're kind of like, wow, I mean, these people are here to see us, and we've done some bigger shows where we're doing our own music and opening for bands like the Counting Crows or Styx or different bands. And yeah, you really, you have to really kind of pinch yourself sometimes and say, I can't believe I get to do this. I often will think to myself that little kid me would be proud that I'm still kind of doing that.
Yeah.
I think about the little kid that was kind of the one that was the dreamer, and he'd be like, that old man's doing all right, because I think it's kind of funny that, but there is a lot of, it's exhilarating and nerve-wracking and also yet just very fulfilling,
Yeah. Do you remember the first time that you ever played, like, on stage?
The first time I ever played on stage was probably much like you, like in April Antics, I think, or whatever, like the Middle school, I sang a Beatles song. Middle school, the band played in Ben Franklin or Ben Franklin Auditorium. So those
Yeah.
would be like my first kind of shows. And then we did a lot of school dances,
Yeah.
like, and proms and stuff like
That's
that.
cool.
Where the band would play. Yeah, it's cool. My girlfriend didn't really like it so much because I'm playing the whole time. I'm like, "Are you having fun at prom?" And she's like, "Not really," but I think she did like it. But she's my wife now, so I couldn't have screwed it up too much.
That's so cute.
Yeah, but it is funny how those were some of my first experiences, and those were probably the most exciting. And
Yeah.
when I do have an exciting show, it takes me back to that mindset of, or what I often will do is on the nights when maybe it's not the most exciting environment, like maybe you're playing somewhere and people aren't paying that close attention and you feel kind of like background noise. You try to remind yourself, now listen, man, this is what you wanted to do. You got to tap into that excitement you had about playing for your classmates in 8th grade, and you can kind of get in that mode.
That's really cool. Because I've only really ever performed on one stage, and it's a pretty big stage. So, what's the difference between a super small stage, like at the Cavern? I saw that it was a pretty small stage compared to the bigger ones that you've played on.
Yeah. Well, the bigger ones, especially with the band, you could do more. You can move around. You can. It's a little more. Like I'd say some of the biggest stages I've ever played at. Like at the Star Plaza when that was still open, or down at Deer Creek, or some of the big festivals. I mean, you can work a big stage. It feels like a rock show. It's just a bigger, kind of deal. But the same principles kind of apply no matter what stage you're on.
Does a smaller stage I don't know if this but does feel more personable?
It does. It's a bit more intimate. I do a lot of acoustic shows where it's just me and a guitar, and I like those as well because it doesn't have the you're on, but it's more personal, like you said. I think that's a good analogy.
So before we go to our next Beatles song, I lied. We're gonna go to a different song, but I want to show those of you on YouTube, you guys should be able to see this, but I was doing some research, as I was telling you earlier, and we found this video, and after we show you, I just want to know your thoughts and explain it. So here
we go.
Here it is.
Yeah. That's essential.
You say I'm crazy. Doing what I do. Well, they give me all kinds of warnings.
Yeah, Central Park, New York City. I think that was 2015 or something like that.
That was right down by John's.
Yeah, that's the spot that when John Lennon was killed, instead of having a grave site, Yoko commissioned the city to do that little mosaic that says "Imagine," and they planted trees from all around the world. A lot of almost not every country, but a lot of countries sent seeds for exotic trees that
That's super cool.
and they plant that would exist in the New York climate, and they planted them, and it's just kind of a gathering place for Beatle fans to come. And I didn't really realize that there's an etiquette and there's rules about playing there, because the street people have kind of taken over the racket there, because there's some tips involved, So I showed up and I just told my wife, here, film this real quick, and I just sat down and played, and I got done, and this guy came up to me and he said, who the heck are you? And I said, well, I'm Chad, I'm from Indiana. He's like, well, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm just playing music in Central Park like John Lennon would want, And he said, well, did you clear it with, I forget, Strawberry Steve or whatever the guy's name was? And I was like, no, I didn't. And he goes, well, we've got a system here. You gotta you got to sign up for a time slot.
Wow, you just sign up
And
for
I
a
said,
time
well,
slot?
and I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, this is my time slot. I said, well, can I play some music with you? And he's like, well, I don't know if you're any good. And I said, well, I watched you play a song, and I can hang with you. Don't worry about it. So he's like, oh, okay. So we did a song together, and then he opened up his tip jar, and he opened up his case, and people started throwing money in. He's looking at me, and I said, oh, I don't want any of your tips. I'm not here to, whatever tips we make, you can keep. Then all of a sudden I was his best friend, So then we play, for like 20 minutes. He's like, are you coming back tomorrow? I'm like, no, this is just a one time. But so it was a really cool experience because you're playing in the house where John Lennon lived the last of his life was right behind you.
Yeah.
And, very emotional place to be. And it's got a cool spirit to it. And everyone, on the dates, on John Lennon's birthday and on the day of his death, a lot of people get there and congregate, and they sing songs and remember him there. So it's a beautiful place.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I walked in this morning and Jenny was like, I have to show you this. And I was like, is that? And he was like, yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to ask him about this.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Because he was telling me about it yesterday, and it was towards the end of class, and he's like, I'll show it to you tomorrow when I find it.
That's
But
cool.
I was like, oh my gosh, that's
Yeah,
super cool.
I was glad that I got to do that, and I was glad that my wife, taped it and all that, and held it. I mean, it's so special things in life that you
Yeah.
do, And sometimes it seems weird because we've always got a phone on us to always be
Yeah.
kind of self-promoting. But at the end of the day, I'm glad I've got it because someday I'll be an old man sitting on the couch, watch that old video of me playing on the, So. But until then, I'm still making those kind of memories.
You've done a couple of those videos.
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
a couple. I've done a few things, so I'm proud of a lot of that.
So I wanted to ask you about the Craw Puppies. Like, how did you guys start?
We started. There's these things called jam nights, and what they are is, people. It's not like an open stage, okay? So we were playing, or I was playing with this friend of mine named Mike. That he and I had been in a band together, and we just started playing at this place in Maryville, and different people would come up and play. And we'd say, what songs do you know? What songs do you know? And
Yeah.
we would just play them, and it was no pressure. And there'd be some missed notes or whatever and mistakes. But it's really all about just playing music with people,
Yeah.
And eventually some guys came along, and we all just really clicked together. So people started asking us if we wanted to play here, there, different places. So that's kind of how it started. It literally started on stage. It literally started just by hanging out and meeting people, and
That's
Very
really cool. So, okay, I was listening to some of your music, and there's a song called Slave to the Puppeteers, and I know there's some, like, controversy on what it actually means. So, for the audience, we're going to play it for you guys. Comment on, like, what you kind of think it means, and then after the song, I want
Sure.
you to clarify.
All right, you got it.
Okay. Anyways, so, yeah, so you guys just, like, clicked as a band?
So yeah, we just kind of all got along, and we all just, the opportunities started coming around where people were like, well, I want to book you guys, the four of you together. So we named it, which is kind of a weird story. We named it. We were playing at this place, and we didn't really have a name for the band, and the guy's like, look, I gotta figure out what the name for your band is. Right next to the place we were playing, there was a Popeye's Chicken, and it said, tonight's special, Craw Puppies. And I jokingly said, oh, that's our name. They just put it on the wrong sign, because it's, and so it became the Craw Puppies. And I was always going to change it because I've never really loved the name. But now there's people that have, like, Craw Puppies tattoos and stuff. And so you're kind of like, yeah, I can't really do
You're like,
that.
well, now
to
I
them.
can't
Now
change
I
it.
can't really change it because that'd be really mean and disrespectful. So
That's a funny story. I
yeah,
like that.
I mean, it was just kind of one of those goofy things. But
All right, so audience, we're going to play Slave to the Puppeteers. Comment, listen to it, tell us what you think, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, you guys. Usually around this time we would take a quick break, but thanks to Chad being here in the front porch, we're not going to take a break. We're just going to keep going, which I'm excited about because
Cool.
the more time, the merrier.
Excellent.
Also, you can go for lessons there too,
Yeah.
right?
Front Porch Music is great. It's been there since 1991. I've been there for a long time because I fell in love with the place when I first walked in the door. And I've owned it now for many years, but I've owned it since 2007. But I've worked there since
That's awesome.
1996. So,
Wow.
yeah,
That's awesome.
I love it.
Like it's that long.
Well, I was
you
okay.
were born
Listen,
there.
I was born in
I-
06. Okay.
I've been there since everyone in this room except for Rich and I were born. No, I think that it's such an amazing place. I'm thrilled that it's there.
So the song we just listened to, like I said, there's a little bit of like controversy on what it means, and I know for quite a few songs, an artist will write a song, and to them it's a specific meaning, but then if someone listens to it, they'll kind of put their own take on it, and I hear that's what that happened to yours.
I intentionally wrote it in a vague way. On its surface, it's about. I mean, it's really just about relationships, and it's about symbiotic relationships that require a master and a servant. Like the puppeteer, the concept of the puppeteer is, the puppet is nothing without the strings,
Right.
and the cross, which I thought was interesting, that puppeteers have like that control panel almost looks like a cross, and I was always intrigued by that because there's the spiritual thing about the cross and the man that's trying to live a noble life for the cross up above him, and I tied that in with my guitar. It's almost a song written from my guitar's perspective to me, because my guitar is, a guitar by itself, it doesn't do much, but you
Right.
put it in the right hands, and then my hands become the master to the guitar. But then when music is such an important part of your life, at the end of the day, it's almost like the guitar's the master to me, or the puppet. If you're a puppeteer and that's your livelihood, suddenly the puppet's controlling you. So it's a symbiotic relationship between the two. And like I said, I wrote it pretty vague about things like. Then there's the one line in there that kind of touches on fame. Too much can kill you, but not enough, and you're as good as dead. That's one of my favorite lines in that song, because I wrote that right around the time Princess Diana died.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
fame essentially killed her. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because being famous, I wrote that song wrote that line that night, because that was the last line that I didn't quite have, and but without fame, you're as good as dead is kind of weird. But if you've got that kind of ego, like that you want to be significant, and you want to feel important, without a little bit of fame or the occasional pat on the back,
Yeah.
is life really worth? Some people, it's unsatisfying. So that's what that line was based on. But I put them all together and wrote it in a slightly ambiguous way, because I wanted people to interpret it. So I'm thrilled that they have, and I'm thrilled that people have found, But there's a spiritual meaning behind it, and there's just a mechanical meaning behind it, and I think those words kind of came to me magically. I'd written 2 or 3 songs with that same idea, and I never quite said it as well as I said it that time. So I don't even play those songs anymore, because they were kind of like first drafts of this song. But although they're completely different,
Yeah.
I didn't want to. I said it best when I happened to say it that time.
So, okay, you mentioned songwriting, which I have never been able to do. I've tried and I can't do it. I know that there's some people have a certain way they songwrite, and I know there are some bands that they'll write the music and then they'll write the lyrics. Do you have a certain way you write songs?
The good ones just kind of sometimes just come to you. I think Slave to the Puppeteer was probably written with that riff first, because it was just kind of like, this is something worth looking into. But I have written the lyrics first. Usually, like anybody, now that we've all got phones, it used to be little cassette recorders. You just hit record and you're like, na, 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 pumpkin pie, whatever,
Pumpkin
you're just singing whatever.
Yeah.
And you put these kind of garbage words in there just to start fleshing it out. And then you take it back and you say, okay, well, I'm not leaving that line in, I'm not leaving that line in. And it's funny because I don't know, I didn't learn from anybody to write that way. But when you listen to songwriters, they all basically do it the same way. They just, you have to write songs badly before you can write good songs, and it's not going to be easy right away. You may get some really good ones, but if there's a bad one in the shoot, you almost kind of got to see it through, so you're not dwelling on it. You have to kind of keep moving. I've got about 300 song ideas in this phone right here that I really need to get off my butt and write more songs. I'm a little bit kind of I don't know why, but I've not really been inspired to write songs in a while, and there's some people, friends of mine, that are doing a pretty good job with it. But I need someone really to kind of come out and write a couple songs, like a peers of mine that really get me like, okay, now because I mean, like anybody, you're kind of competitive with your peers.
Yeah.
And that's really what inspired me to write these albums. Where some friends of mine were doing it, and I said, well, if they're going to do it, I have to do it. And a lot of it is just kind of stopping second guessing yourself and just realizing, that it's just good to do. You know. But I'm a little bit behind on my songwriting.
We talked about the Beatles a little bit earlier, and now talking about songwriting. Were they a huge like inspiration in songwriting?
Yeah, in fact, I probably they're such a big inspiration that nowadays I try to write songs that don't sound like the Beatles because I know they're naturally going to sound like the Beatles no matter what I do. So I try to work around that a little bit. But yeah, there's definitely Beatle influence. You can hear 100 Beatle influences in my albums for sure because it's just there. It's the gold standard. It's what I grew up thinking. These were the best songs of all time. So you obviously want to try to write to the best songs of all time.
Right.
You want to have that be your template, and it still is.
Nice. So I'm going to play another Crop Puppy song, and there's a part in the song that I want to talk about
Okay.
after we play the song.
Sure.
But this one is Peaceful Amnesty. Welcome back, guys. That was Peaceful Amnesty. Now, okay, there are a couple parts that I really liked about this song. When you actually sing the lyrics, Peaceful Amnesty, how you like hold them out. I don't know. It gave me goosebumps.
Well, that's good.
I
That's
really
good.
liked how you did that.
Thank you very much.
And then
Thank you.
there's about, I think it's like 2 minutes and 20 seconds into the song where there's just like a guitar solo. And like the music in this song, I just really love it.
Well, thank you.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's supposed to. It's kind of an anti-depression song. It's kind of about finding peace in your current moment and not. I mean, that there's always things going on. The first line is, "I was thinking that the sun would never shine again." It's kind of like, those winter blues, and then all of a sudden you get a sunny day and you realize, you know what, it's not so bad. And it's kind of about getting just away in your own brain and in your own mind and finding peace. And the amnesty came later. The word amnesty, peaceful. I sang forever, peaceful, blah, nah, nah, peaceful, blah blah blah. And then amnesty is just kind of safety and comfort and just justice. So it's the idea is just to find that in your situation.
Yeah.
And it does. I think it comes across that way for sure. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, so random question.
Okay.
It's just my curiosity. Do you know how long it took you to write that song?
Which one? Peaceful Amnesty?
Yeah.
The last part, coming up with the word amnesty, took the longest. But I think I wrote that song in pretty much no time. I think it pretty much wrote itself. You sat down and just kind of played those chords, and it just no. I don't think maybe a week of thinking about it. What I do is I write the parts that I know, and then I drive around. Like there's a couple lines that I maybe didn't have, and I'll drive around and, I'll just try different things. I'll be singing in the car and thinking of ways that it could go. But it didn't take me very long to write that one. It was pretty
That's
quick.
like crazy because I'll watch interviews of like different artists and like this song took me like months and like this song took me 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like it's just weird that songs can just come to you.
I'm very lucky. Sometimes my best ideas tend to come to me pretty much like that, and then I sometimes, overthink the easier parts.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Well,
I
thanks
loved
for having
talking to you.
Thank you. This is great here, and I appreciate what you guys have. It's awesome. It was nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. So next week on The Real Melody, we will be talking about the movie Sing. So if y'all want to go watch that, because there will be spoilers. I'm sorry. It's just going to happen.
It's been out a while.
It has been out a while. So if you really haven't seen
I
it.
think you're spoiler exempt at this point.
Exactly. So seriously, guys, if you haven't, go see it. It's a great movie. I love it. It's one of my favorites. That's it for the day. We are going to go out to World's Much Bigger.
Cool.
Bye, guys.
Bye.